episode number 26. I've realized, Brad, I need to get some different dance moves for the people who come in. I feel like I do my same little jig every single time.
I mean, I kind of enjoy them. It's kind of becoming like a thing. So I think keep them and perfect them. Don't add new ones.
That's fair. That's fair. We did have someone in the comments. They said, I don't know how I have failed to discover this podcast until last week. So now I'm catching up, but your song is stuck in your head. Never change.
Yeah, I saw like that. Yeah, I love that. That was fun.
So I'll tell you, when you guys start a podcast, there's a couple things that you got to think about. And it was a really fun time going through possible songs that we could have as our intro. And I'm grateful for the one we landed on.
Yeah, same here. So, today's going to be a cool episode. We're bringing on a very, very special guest. We've been teasing for weeks now, but a very special guest. And we're still going to do our in the bag thing. We're still going to talk through the bag. But it's going to be interesting because one of the putters I threw today was actually invented and manufactured by said person. So that'll be cool. So, Robbie, any thoughts before we jump in with the guest today?
Yeah, I would say my greatest friend in disc golf is this guy. We have been talking on the phone for what's crazy, almost 2 years now.
Wow.
And so I am just grateful for everything that this person does for the sport. And most of you, I'm like, about like when you bring a guest on, you always assume because they're important in your life that they're important in everybody else's life. Mm-hmm. But if this man is not important in your life already,
you're wrong.
He should be.
Yeah.
So let's go ahead and bring in Jesse.
All right, let's get it. Today's episode, before we jump into talking to Jesse, is sponsored by Flippy Disc Golf. Thank you, Flippy. Flippy Disc Golf just dropped some sweet hoodies, and I just got mine, and I love it. I didn't wear it today. It's a little warm here. Plus, I just got a new tattoo done. I didn't want to ruin it, to be honest with you. So still leaking some ink off this bad boy. So ooh. I have been wearing it. I wore it on the sales-a-thon. Super comfortable. Definitely what Flippy needed and what you need for the fall and winter season. They feel great. They look great. And they have that super soft Flippy fabric that we all love from their shirts. So, and they obviously have fun and vibrant designs too, which is what we love.
I was going to ask. So it's like the same feel as the jerseys, just long sleeve hoodies.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's
that's awesome.
A little thicker, right? Like hoodie thickness, but it's just as soft. Yeah, they're good. I love it. They have the little Flippy logo like on the pocket. It's not up on the sleeves or anything. It's down in the pocket. Okay. So cool thing they're doing also in combination with Foundation and Atlas is this month, one lucky winner will receive an exclusive hoodie with a golden Flippy logo, like one of a kind, and $200 worth of gift cards from Foundation and an Atlas Pioneer, which is crazy. So, yeah. And so all hoodie orders until November 15th will count toward entries in this giveaway. And there's also a free entry option as well. You just go to flippydiscgolf.com to win the golden hoodie. Look for it. You can enter it for free as well. You don't even have to buy one. But please buy a hoodie. You'll love it. Pick up a shirt and a hat while you're there. And don't forget the discount code Foundation10 for 10% off your order. Foundation10 for 10% off your order. And again, every order goes toward that giveaway of this awesome gift package they're doing, as well as an Atlas Pioneer. You can find all your stylings, all the Flippy Disc Golf apparel at flippydiscgolf.com.
It is an honor to welcome my friend Jesse of Trash Panda. Welcome to In the Bag, sir.
Thank you for having me. Excited to be here.
So Jesse is no stranger to podcasting. He's been a guest on about 700 different podcasts now. And because of what's happening next week, he will be a guest on a lot more podcasts. But we have an In the Bag. We're getting a special treatment here because we get to talk about something real special that we're going to get to in the putter section of your bag. But Jesse, tell us a little bit about, for most people that come on the show, we want to get to know them as a player. Let us know about your sort of role or involvement in the sport, and then we'll dive into your bag as a player. How's that sound?
That sounds great because I really don't tote myself as a player first and foremost. In terms of
you're really good
in terms of skill level. So my name's Jesse, founder of Trash Panda Disc Golf, and we're about to launch our first disc. We've been working for the past 2.5 years, getting to the place where we could make a disc out of 100% recycled plastic. And the whole thing kind of started when I started playing in 2008. and really got into the sport like super mellow, not anything crazy. Didn't play competitively for like a decade. Just played fun with the homies. I guess we played competitively with each other, but not in terms of sanctioned play. And yeah, so I've just been playing forever, and I've always thought we should have more recycled plastic in the sport. So started Trash Panda to solve a problem that was selfish to myself. It was a problem I wanted to solve, and turns out some other people were excited about it too. So yeah, we are launching this disc on November 7th to the world. It's the Trash Panda Inner Core. It's a putter made from 100% recycled plastic. So we're super stoked about that. And for the audience, if they don't know who we are, check us out on YouTube. That's probably the best place to go. And you'll find out quickly that I again, don't tote myself as a player as much as creating content that's interesting, fun, and following along with our story. But at the end of the day, yeah, I'm not on here to say, hey, I'm a great player and I know everything about discs. So I'm really excited to learn from you guys too and kind of get some suggestions. So yeah, I guess that was a long elevator ride, but that's the elevator pitch. There you go.
No, I love it. All the way up to the top of the Empire State Building. We're doing fantastic.
Yeah,
yes, sir.
So, A, love that. B, Jesse has said that he is not a great player, but we're going to throw some numbers out there, and I want you guys to realize that Jesse is indeed very good at throwing the Frisbees while he is out there. And having competed against him in person and gotten to see him shred, it is a lot of fun. So, Jesse, we got to know you for that aspect of your game, which obviously huge. And like you said, I feel a similar vibe, right? Of like Robbie C disc golf versus Robbie Crawford disc golf is how I kind of phrase it on my own end. But let's get to know not Jesse from Trash Panda. Let's get to know Jesse Stedman, the player, the distance. So we set you out in a field and we said, hey, what is your controlled shot distance for a backhand and a forehand?
Yeah, so interestingly enough, both of those I'm going to use a Wraith for. And both of those I've been throwing Wraiths for, 14 years now. So it's like, it feels like home kind of thing when you grab the rim. So it's just perfect for me. Backhand's going to be farther for sure. I grew up playing with some buddies and like all we cared about was who could throw the farthest. So when I first started, we all started forehand only. Mm-hmm. And once that distance capped out and like one of our buddies kept bombing forehands farther than us, we all were like, okay, it's time to switch to backhand, and then eventually outdrove him. So that's kind of the story of how it went. Mm-hmm. Backhand, I'm going to say right now, between 425 and 450 is my controlled distance. Really, like with how much I'm playing these days, let's go on the shorter side rather than the longer side, just because that's probably the reality. And then forehand's going to be shorter because that's really been developed like over time for not what I lean on for distance as much as control. So it's probably like 350 to 375 for controlled forehand distance. So yeah, it does me well.
I would say so, Brad. Like, how would you feel about, you're not playing that much, and all of a sudden, you throw like 425.
Yeah, I'm a little envious. I feel like I'm playing and throwing more than anybody, and I'm like creeping in distance. Like every 2 weeks, I gain like 5 feet or something. So
that's
envious.
14 years over time. So it's not just like I popped out like throwing that far. Yeah. So.
And Robbie, I just realized this month, at the end of this month, so like this week is my like 2-year playing anniversary. I was talking to someone yesterday, so I'm like, okay, we're in it. We're like legitimate now.
Yeah, it's not just a passing weekend hobby at this point.
Mm-hmm. Hey, even if it is a passing weekend hobby, you're still legit. So anyone can play.
That's true.
Come on with it. So Jesse, that's big distance. We also get to know your short game here a little bit. If we lined you up with a stack of 10 inner cores at 15 feet, 25 feet, and 40 feet, how many are you making from each of those stations?
Yeah, so if we were talking about like me giving the good news before the bad news, that's like asking about my distance and then my short game. So short game is not great for me. I started thinking about the woes of my putting so much so that I didn't even register fully what the question was. So can you hit me again? It's the distances and how many am I making out of each, or what?
Yeah, so 10 shots from each distance at 15 feet, 25 feet, and 40 feet. How many are you making?
Oh, man. Okay. 15 feet, 25, 40. 15, I'll probably 80%, I'd say. So let's go with 8. 25, oh, I'd be happy with 50%. And then 40, it depends. Sometimes my jump putt is dialed and it's like more consistent than my like 20 footers, which is ridiculous. And sometimes it's completely not dialed. So let's give myself like, if I'm going in a row because player B, C, D is always better, let's say probably 3 out of 10 for the 40 footer.
Okay.
I'll give myself that.
I respect that. That is definitely, I know lots of people. In fact, I've got a video coming out this week that's all about like some people get more excited to land at 35 feet than they do at 30 feet.
Yeah, Chris Dickerson right there. Mm-hmm. Honestly, like being totally honest about my game, the best I've ever been at putting was when I did a video called 100 butts a day for 30 days. Mm-hmm. And we still get comments on that video that say, man, I wish I was as good at putting or whatever. And it's like, if this was that video, it's just been a steady decline like ever since. So let's not pretend I'm good at putting anymore. So yeah, I'd be happy with, I'd be happy with those numbers. I don't practice at all. And to be honest, with the new putter coming out, I haven't really given myself time to practice too. So yeah, it is what it is.
That's fair. So our final question is usually, what would you say is the biggest strength of your game?
Ooh. That's a very interesting question. I mean, distance is one of them for sure. And then probably like I really, really rely on my forehand scramble. BT hard harp all the way. Maybe those two. But I will say also, like, the biggest weakness in my game 2 years ago was throwing flat and straight. And I've been working so hard on that forever. And, well, that's not forever. 2 years. Let's be real. It's exactly 2 years. And now that, like, I'm slowly creeping into where that I think is becoming a strength of my game too, is like controlling a disc to go flat and straight, which is like ridiculously the hardest part of disc golf. So yeah, we're slowly creeping up on that becoming a strength, but I can't give it strength quite yet. So maybe in a year. We'll talk in a year.
Yeah. Okay. It's like that new workout at the gym that feels real good, but you know, we've not got a dial yet. We're not beach ready. Fantastic. So Jesse, I want to look at your bag. We're going to break it down. Silas put the infographic up of your bag. And when I told Brad when we were launching in, I never show Brad the bag until right before we get on. And I said, this is going to be an interesting one to break down because Jesse has embraced mold minimalization
to the
in
T.
an extreme way.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I was actually surprised when I saw it in a good way. But yeah, it's interesting to see someone who's really, really dug into that.
Yeah. So you've got, man, it looks like, let's count them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. You got 20 discs in your bag, and you probably only have 10 molds, if that. Probably closer to 9.
Yeah, and some of those discs I will say are course dependent, so I threw them in there, but like some of them I'm not even going to touch. So really, like the molds I utilize in any given round would be even smaller, which is crazy to think about. But okay, here we are.
So how we're going to do it, we want to start at distance drivers. We're going to work our way down and get to putters last because we're going to spend a lot of time talking about this wonderful new disc you got coming out. But let's start with, you've got an Air Giant in your bag. Is that one of those like course dependent discs, or does the Air Giant stay in pretty regularly?
No, it stays in regularly. But interestingly enough, my mydiscbag.com or whatever it is, it doesn't lay them out. Like I almost want to put in custom flight numbers, but I don't want to do that because it's not how it would be. But the Air Giant is my most understable distance driver, and it looks to be my most overstable, I think, but it is my most understable because it's air plastic. So it's lightweight. I think it's like 165 or something. And I have 2 of them. I keep one in the bag, depending on the course I'll throw in. The second one, it's a little more beat in, but it's like if I crank on it full power, it will turn pretty hard, which is not what the numbers say at all. Mm-hmm. But it will always fight out, which is the coolest part. So it has pretty extreme understability for me, but it has enough stability in the mold itself to fight out of it. So I can get a pretty massive like turnover shot out of it, but it'll be flat or fading depending on how much air I give it. So yeah, I think the numbers are like 1 turn, 4 fade or something. And for me, it's probably like a 3 turn, 2 fade or something like that. Like it's not at all what it looks like.
So when you say it fights out, is it going to get all the way back to its original line, or is it just enough that it's not like it doesn't finish burned over?
Yeah, it doesn't turn and burn basically. So it'll fight out in the sense that it fights out to flat, or if I give it enough air, it'll fade too, but it's not on its original line because it's taken so much turn at that point. So I've been working on that shot for a while, which is why my forehand distance is not what it used to be, because now I can just go backhand turn over with the disc and it's easy because it's an air plastic. You just kind of let it out and get it into the pocket and it does the work for you. So it's like the most obscure disc I think in my bag, to be honest.
Yeah, but I literally don't know anyone. I don't know anyone that throws a Giant, to be honest with you.
Much less an Air Giant.
Well,
yeah, that's true.
To be clear, I do not bag a Giant. I have an actual, like, I don't know what the plastic is called, but I have a Giant. It's their premium, like, star equivalent. And is it tournament or VIP?
Yeah, tournament plastic.
Tournament.
TP.
Yeah. So I have a tournament one, and man, it is true to the flight numbers. It is a beefcake. It has no use in my bag. So it's so funny because it's like I don't throw a Giant. I will throw an Air Giant. It's very weirdly obscure. But also one thing we'll probably bring up multiple times in this conversation is that I'm in Denver. And so the elevation plays a role to some extent. It probably would turn and burn for me at lower elevation. That being said, a hack when you're coming to higher elevation is to use lightweight versions of the discs you like in lower elevation. So lightweight is kind of like a cheat code up here. So that's why I started throwing it too. So yeah.
Makes sense.
I love it. So the cloud breaker's in your bag. If I remember, you've had this cloud breaker for a while, right?
Yeah. So it's Cloud Breaker 1. And
on them.
I'm not trying to flex. It was given to me. It was very nice of the person who gave it to me. And yeah, so I've been using that for a while. It is my most overstable. The first run of Cloud Breakers, the first like mold plus I think the way they dried them or whatever it was or cooled them, like it came out extra overstable. So that one's like 03, 04. It's not totally true to its flight numbers. And that one I really only lean on when I need that, heavy-handed like headwind shot or something that I know is just going to crank left on me or reliably go left. So, yeah, right hand, backhand, that is. So I wouldn't be a true Coloradan without a cloud breaker in my bag. So
it's funny. I just recently threw I threw a lot this last weekend as we were vending and we had a field. We were just kind of testing out some discs and I threw the new cloud breaker and I've been looking for something overstable for me, but not so overstable that I can't throw it, but enough stability that will fight wind or like really get left if I wanted to. And for those of you who picked up the new cloud breaker, I love it. Like I can get some serious distance out of it actually before it like really fades hard for me. So for whatever it's worth.
They're calling it the people's cloud breaker. So
that's what I hear.
Go.
That's what I hear.
The people.
Yep.
So I think I want to move on from distance drivers because I can assume with the race, varying numbers of stabilities that cover probably the gaps existing from your cloud breaker all the way to your air giant.
Yeah, which doesn't look like what it says. Basically 2 of them are the exact same. I'll be quick with it. They're Echo Plastic, so they're Innova's old recycled line, and those were recently given to me. And those immediately kicked out the wraiths I had going. And then the other one is just lightweight. So it's in the 160s and allows me to, utilize it at higher elevations if I'm going up into the mountains, or kind of get the same flight with a little bit more ease and stuff like that. So yeah, varying stability, varying weights.
Yeah. My only question in drivers would be, have you thrown a Halo Wraith?
Yeah. It just didn't, I don't know if I had one, how I would feel about it. So I grew up playing in California. I don't know how I'd feel about it if I was still at lower elevation, because my wraiths that I grew up playing with would, to get wraiths to do what I'm used to them doing from when I started playing, I have to use lightweight here. So the Halo just is beefy enough that it's I don't need more beef on my wraiths. I'm good. That's not what I have them for. So, but yeah, I mean, if I really wanted to stay true to mold minimalization, I could probably grab a Halo and kick out the cloud breaker to just cover that whole slot, and then get even more lightweight and kick out the air giant too, and just have a bunch of wraiths for my distance shots. But I've been phasing out of Innova for probably 3 years now. There's this thing when you start playing when you're a brand loyalist and they have no clue who you are. So I was that guy who got an Innova starter set and I was I only throw Innova. And I think that's the funniest thing ever now. And it got me into a rut of just throwing their discs. So I've been trying to phase out of those, just because I think I want to be able to just throw an open bag and go for whatever I think flies the way I want it to, until we have enough molds at Trash Panda to take care of my whole bag. So
I want to make a public declaration, podcast folks that are listening, because Jesse just made that comment and Josh released a video that says he's done with Innova. I just want to go ahead and let you know that Robbie sees friends. He said he started this 3 years ago. Okay. Before we knew
it wasn't you.
So just stop sending me those messages. I am not that guy. So
yeah, as 3 close friends, all of us, we can say we made those decisions independently. But
for what it's worth, I've actually added Innova molds to my bag since the podcast. So
there we go.
We're doing it. We're doing it. So when we get to fairway drivers, what you do with an Explorer, I straight up don't even think that Trilogy sponsored players do what you do with Explorers. None of them Emerson Keith doesn't utilize an Explorer the way you do. So you've got 3 Explorers in your bag. Talk me through what is the difference between those 3 Explorers.
Yeah, I've got 10 Explorers. And that's a lot of one disc for me. I'm not a guy who keeps a lot of the same, or a lot of disc, period. Yeah, yeah, for sure. You're definitely the same. So basically, how many did I say are in the bag? 3?
You have 3 in there. Listed.
Yeah, so it's just varying stabilities in terms of one that's pretty true to the numbers, which is 7.5 or 6.02. I'd say it's definitely an 02, so it's on the more beefy side of Explorers. Then there's one that's just a little more beat. It's like a Ricky Explorer from back in the day. Actually, both of those ones are. One's just newer, one's an more beat in version. And then so just very straight, dead straight for me, maybe a little bit of turn, a little bit of flip up. And then one's a recycled Explorer. So it's their recycled plastic that just utilizes some regrind in it, which makes it slightly more understable. So that one is my understable fairway slot. But they all map out in the same spot on the graph, so it doesn't look like it. But yeah, so it's basically, each one is a different vertical line on the graph or something like that, I'd say. I have heard, maybe you can like give me a hot take here, but Explorer X or something like that is like an overstable Explorer. I've never tried one of those, but I've heard I should. Do you know about those?
Yeah, so yours are all in Opto. So they have like Opto X Glimmers, which I'm sure you might have seen. Like another round probably had last year's Tour Series. They had a ton of them.
Okay.
Those like when you think Glimmer X, you know that like dark purple or the pink or the blue, or even the yellow. I think those were the 4 colors. So they had those. Something they've done this year is they've done it's Fusion X, but for Explorers it'd be Goldline X. Classic trilogy, same plastic and 4 different names. So Goldline X is with as much as you like Star and your distance drivers, I feel like it would probably give that like slightly beat in Ricky. I would imagine it would fly close to that just because, as you probably experienced, Goldline is just not as stable as the Opto usually.
Yeah. The recycled is technically like a mix of the gold and the Opto. So it's more on the side of the gold. I would love to, honestly, we talk about mold minimalization. I'd love to kick out the Captain's Raptor and just have a truly beefy Explorer. And then I can just, varying levels of stability, just take over my whole fairway slot, because it's just like, I believe in something that like probably isn't true or doesn't have any scientific founding, but I think you call it subconscious confidence. And it's that when I just grab the mold that I throw for like this shot, or like when I grab that size rim, I know what my form needs to be. I know what my grip needs to be. I know how I need to throw this disc kind of thing. So that's why I love this is a teaser for where we're going, but that's why I love the Berg, because I only throw Bergs for like specific shots. And my muscle memory reminds me what I need to do in that moment by just grabbing the disc. So like I said, I don't know if that's true, but when it comes to the Explorers, I'd love to just take over my whole fairway slot with Explorers. But
so does the cap wrap in the mountains or like at elevation? I feel like the cap wrap would have to just be insanely overstable.
Yeah, it's super beefy. I use it for forehands. I don't really forehand Explorers. I will if I need to, but I don't typically. So I use it for forehands and then just like extreme stability shots if I need it. And then actually grenades. That's like my go-to grenade disc right now, because it just goes straight up and straight down. I used to grenade stuff that would get a little bit of like a like fade out in the grenade sense, but and that's like more understable discs do that. But I've really liked leaning on the cap wrap, because I just know if I release it straight, it's going straight up and straight down. So yeah.
Brad, is there a fairway? I know fairways have probably been the diciest part of your bag as of late. Is there a fairway like that you can even say, or you felt that you can dream to say like, man, that could one day be what the Explorer is to Jesse for me? Like, is there one that's done that for you?
I thought the Jackalope was going to be, but it's too flippy. I know like the Grackle, I really love the Grackle, like hand feel wise and like how it flies. It's like a slower version of my beat-in Vulture that I love so much. And I know they just put out a glow plastic in there. And I think as they develop the plastics, the Grackle might be that for me, because I know the glove's going to be a little bit more overstable. If they have it in like an Apex plastic, it's going to be more understable. So the Grackle could be there depending on what plastics they put it out in.
Okay.
Who's the Grackle from?
It's Mint discs.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a great, and I was just we're talking about the overstability thing, Jesse, and like the utility. That's probably something I'm really like missing. Again, I had my Raptor, for my regular Raptor, was very overstable for me at the beginning and became kind of beat in, but I'd only use it for like thumber or like tomahawk things I needed to just like get to the ground. And I'm really missing that in my bag. So I told Jason this in the warehouse the other day, and I can't believe it came out of my mouth. I think I might reconsider the Vulture and maybe pull them out and start working a Raptor and like a Captain's Raptor back in for those sort of shots. Because I think I can throw a controlled Raptor shot now, and it won't be like beef and get to the ground. I think I have enough speed now to like make it be usable over stability for me.
Take note of all the things happening in this podcast. Like the title of the episode should just be something like "You will not believe what we just said."
Yeah,
that is awesome. Okay, so your mid ranges, you've got two M4s, flippy M4, and one M4 that flies more like a EMAC Truth.
Yep, more understable than an EMAC Truth, but one's just like baseline plastic and one is like 400 or 500. I don't even know. But it's a straight flyer and it's actually from a run. Someone gave it to me. Shout out to Owen Cook. It's got like a chalkiness to the plastic that apparently came out in one of their runs at one point, or something like that.
Or all of them.
Yeah. Oh, there we go. A little bit of shade. It honestly is great. You like don't even have to chalk up beforehand because it has this. It's really weird. I've never seen anything like it before. So, M4, the premium is my like dead straight, maybe a little bit of turn, and then I should say dead straight being like flip up to dead straight, and then the baseline is like super understable.
Okay, so when we look at the bag, and I think something you've done really well is you've noted like, hey, this is not how they actually fly. So like if you were to put that premium plastic M4, it would be a lot further left on the chart than where it is.
For sure.
And so then if you were looking at this bag, I think initially you might be like, okay, he either needs like an understable fairway or like that middle straight mid-range slot, which you have both of those covered. But something that you throw, and when we were all at the farm, Overthrow, Trash Panda, and myself at the farm in February, I realized I've never felt more left out than for not bagging a suspect.
That was pure irony.
Yeah,
so.
you both throw suspects, you and Josh, and you rely, man, I feel
heavily.
like that suspect harp slot is a staple of your game.
Yeah. So the suspect for me is, it's one of my most relied on discs. It puts both, so it looks like it's the same as the harp on the graph because the flight numbers are the same, but they're not at all. It is more like a 5-speed to me, and it flies more like what I would think an EMAC Truth would fly like. Just because 0-2 with EMAC Truth, I usually get a little more turn than a 0-2, and it's usually a little straighter. So yeah, 0-2 is what I would probably call the suspect, like 5-0-2. And then I have one that I've been using for years, and then got another one from someone that matches up with it in terms of its stability, and they're dead straight for me. So those are my like release it flat, it'll go dead straight. And then the suspect, it just backhand and forehand is like so comfortable for me. I don't know why, but forehand, backhand, any shot I need mid range, I'm probably grabbing that disc. So yeah, it's relied on more than the M4 for sure. So the M4 for me, I'm not as good with finesse still. So those understable discs are harder for me to trust and rely on. Whereas like the suspect, when I travel genuinely, I'm probably not going to play, or I might go to one course. I just bring one suspect with me, and I can do any course if it's putter only, or even if there's like 350 is probably the farthest I'd push it backhand. But like, I'll just play it for par if it's too long and just play with that. And it's so fun. So yeah, the suspect it's probably the staple in the bag for sure. Okay. Until we made our disc. And then, yeah, obviously that one is the staple in the bag. So.
Have you thrown any? I know that there was a couple Trilogy players this year that went in on a custom run of suspects. It was Nicholson, Holland, and Raven did it. Have you gotten to throw any of their drops?
Yeah. I've thrown them. I actually have 2 of them. They're about the same. Maybe, I mean, they're about the. So I throw Biofusion, which is again, like the Latitude Recycled, it's a mix of their Lucid Infusion plastics. So it's that Star style versus that Champ style. So that's the difference for me there. I don't know why, but the bio just like works better for me. So I just didn't even really entertain them too much. I used them a little bit, but I also have been gifted a handful of biofusion suspects, which has been incredible from the audience because they're so hard to find and just so random too, like an Air Giant. So I, with those, someone maybe a year ago gave me like literally out of the box, never been thrown, brand new biofusion suspect. So I also have that one, which I don't use too often, but it's my most overstable one.
Okay.
So like getting a new Lucid Glimmer, whatever those were, it didn't really do anything new for me. So I just kind of moved on.
Yeah. I was just, in my mind, I was trying to think if there was something that could replace, like if there was a version of a suspect that could replace your harp to get that overstable flight. But it sounds like that extra overstability you get from the harp is not going to exist in the suspect, no matter what kind of plastic they run it in.
I don't even touch them for nearly the same shot. The like harp and zone I find to be familiar, and pigs for that matter. I would put suspects in a completely different class altogether, even though they're telling us they're the same numbers. So yeah, I bump that up on the chart to like the line above, maybe like 5-speed, and that's where I find that one. So I literally I've tried opto or tournament harps and VIP harps. I've tried everything, and it's just a completely different flight. They're completely different discs. So yeah.
Brad, have you thrown a suspect yet?
That's what I was sitting here thinking. No, the only one I really can recall feeling, it's just because I've never really felt one, was the Hybrid X. I was literally just looking it up on Trilogy's site. We just got some in not too long ago. But yeah, that Hybrid X plastic, the Tour Series one. I mean, it feels pretty good, but I mean, I don't know. I've never really thrown it. So I'm intrigued now because you're saying it throws more like a mid-range for you. I always love that.
Yeah, and it's like a close sibling to the Justice, in my opinion. So Justice would be like a very, very beefy suspect. Mm-hmm. And I'll grab my Justice when I'm going to lower elevations, but I won't use it up here because it's just too, I don't need that much overstability in that distance. So
yeah. My warning to you, Brad, is there are very few people I know, and the comments I'm sure will remind me that I'm wrong in this, but there's very few people I know that have thrown a suspect that have not like fallen in love with it.
Okay. Well, I might be careful. There's too much change happening right now. I don't need to. That may make me rethink my whole mid-range thing, and I just feel like I got it figured out for now. So, hey, maybe I'll just throw it for fun one day.
Yeah.
Famous last words.
We'll look for, if you're a guest that you feel like that is a weakness in your game and we want to get Brad to try it, reach out. And
if you want to destroy me in my bag, please reach out and we'll get you on the podcast.
It'll be like a Merry Christmas thing, right at the end of the year. So,
sure.
Okay,
it's a fun disc. And to be fair to the audience too, like just find a disc you love that you can rely on. It doesn't have to be a suspect. I would never tell people to do what I'm doing. Like Air Giants whack. I don't know how I would replace those if I lose them. And so just like find that thing for you that you're like, regardless of what's happening, I can trust this one. I know what this one's going to do. And for me, that's the suspect. So yeah.
Pig is love, pig is life, baby. So let's talk about the Berg. We'll make it real fast because, the Berg gang is
they're alive.
Intense. So y'all are, and you have a very special type of Berg in your bag, right?
Yeah.
Like yours are very hard to find.
I have 2 regrind Bergs. So again, we're following along with that recycled theme. Every company has done their like little versions of recycled, adding some recycled plastic into their runs and stuff like that. So I like to support that, and I like the way they fly. Those ones are super fun. Both of them came as gifts and were dyed for me, so they've got some fun dyes on them. And yeah, I love the Berg. I mentioned, I'll just say this again. We don't need to go too deep in it. So I mentioned I don't have a lot of finesse, and the Berg compensates for some of my weakness. So if I was if I was more finesse and more controlled on those short putter throws, then I probably would get rid of a Berg because I wouldn't need it. But because I don't have that control, I have some off axis torque, I'm not the smoothest of throwers, I can rely on the Berg to compensate for my weakness. So again, I'll just say, whether it's the Berg or something else for you, like find a disc that can do that for you. It's really helpful sometimes. And it's not like I'm working out of that. I'm trying to, because I don't think that's how I get great at disc golf. But at the same time, sometimes you just don't want to work on something, or you're working on too much and you just need a disc to do what you need it to do. So grab the Berg and throw it. So yeah, I will say I did at one point win a distance competition with a Berg. I think I threw it like 309 feet or something like that. So that's a fun little flex.
It had to have flexed in order to.
That's true. I didn't know a Berg could fly past 150 feet, so that's amazing.
That was
okay, so we've teased it all podcast. It's huge news. Let's talk about it. There's a new disc coming out. The Inner Core.
Wow. Look at him.
Come on.
Look at us. Who would have thought?
Yeah. Wow. Interesting. We all got the same disc at the same time. Weird.
What? So, Jesse, we both went out and through it. And I definitely want to hear Brad's thoughts, especially. You and I have talked a little bit off the podcast with it. But when you were designing the Inner Core, what was your goal for what was your goal? I'm gonna leave it that ambiguous.
Yeah.
What was your goal?
Yeah. I got an answer, even though it was ambiguous. Let's go. We wanted to make the most user-friendly, straightest flying putter we could. And for me, I wanted to make something that your beginner who doesn't have power, who doesn't know how to play, can throw, as well as your pro who's like super advanced. And like if we could find something so in the middle that it would fit literally for everyone, then that was the goal. And part of the reason is because it's our first disc, but also there's like some story behind it in terms of our mission with sustainability. And like sustainability is something that we can only achieve if like everyone's involved and everyone does something. And so that was kind of like the story behind that too, of trying to find something that would just fit everyone. So we were going for something that was dead straight putter. So did we achieve it?
Brad? Well, so I guess I'll jump in here. So coming from, I'm at the lower end of that spectrum and the beginner spectrum here. So Robbie had me go out and throw it kind of like, not throw it against the pure, but kind of like just, in my mind, the pure is like the super straight throwing putter, basically. That pretty much, beginners are directed to. People putt with them, but I see a lot of people want the very straight shots. They use the pure. So I did throw it against the pure. I didn't make a whole lot of notes like I would typically in the bag episode against one another, but I just wanted to point out a few things about the Inner Core. Number one, I really enjoy the Inner Core's feel. I think there's maybe like a stigma, like if this is recycled plastic, like purely recycled plastic is going to feel like crap, right? But
it's literally trash, so it should feel like trash.
Yeah, exactly. But it actually feels really good. I mean, it has, to me, it's like very, very Star-esque almost. Like that's kind of like gummy, a little soft, but like not in a bad way. Like it's still grippy. It's not slick in my hand, which is very important for me. I also like that it's really, for our visual people here, it's not quite as like deep as like a pure, for instance, which I kind of like from a throwing putter perspective. I also think that, I mean, just the bevel on the end, like here, there's nothing sharp, and it just fits really nicely. Because again, I fan grip my throwing putters, so it's like beautiful for that. Because sometimes when you get too deep of like a rim, it gets a little uncomfortable, or if there's like a sharp bead or an edge or something like that. And there's a grip here. I don't feel like this is slipping in my hands when I'm fan gripping this. So from a feel perspective, it definitely checks all my boxes on a feel perspective. Throwing these, again, I'm not really going to talk a whole lot about the Pure today. It was just more of just to like have a control and the experiment, really.
Yeah.
I wrote a note. Let me just look at this note because I always keep like notes when I'm in the field, right? I have field notes. I'm that guy. I wrote like pure true point and shoot putter, and like I don't give that to anybody. I don't give that like category to anything. And what I mean by that is like the input I gave this is kind of what it took, and that can be both a good thing and a bad thing. But I think it's a good like teaching putter. Because I definitely knew when I gave this thing too much anhyzer. I definitely knew when I threw it the nose angle was way up. I definitely knew when I didn't give it enough air. Like I knew all of those things like pretty immediately. It made me very conscious about like slowing down and like really giving some like, I don't know, not gentleness maybe, but that's the word I'm thinking of, but like gave it just a little bit of finesse. Yeah. Which I think you said, Jesse, it's something you're working on. I'm definitely working on that as I'm throwing more mids and putters. I'm really working on like the finesse shot. I think I would put this, and this is maybe like a little out there, so forgive me. I would put this putter in a very specific place in my bag. I would not put this with like my throwing putters per se. This would probably almost go with my approach discs, and this is why. I have a Rico right now. Other than my Envy, I have an Envy and a Rico that are really my throwing putters, and they both do very specific things for me. And then if the needs aren't met there, I go up into my like approach discs or lower mid range area. This disc is really interesting because I can throw a lot of shots with this just out of the box, which is really cool. I could definitely get it to, if I gave it some hyzer, and I could get the hyzer flip to flat or hyzer flip to slight turn, which is a shot I really need. And I didn't have to kill it to make it do that, which is very important to me. Just like my uplink, I don't have to kill to get that. This is like a putter version of that for me. But what was also interesting is if I gave it my Rico, my main purpose of the Rico being in my bag is that big Annie left to right shot that will not burn over. Like I could do that with this disc, but what was cool about it is I didn't have to like really exaggerate the anhyzer angle. I could give it some, and it would just kind of do it, and I could leave a little nose up, and it would stay in the air. Nice. I do think this has more glide than like a Pure, personally, for me. So I'd call this like a control putter, which is very interesting. So sweet. I don't know if that exists, but for me, does now. Yeah, that's what I would call this, as a control putter. So yeah, and I just like that it has a very neutral to understable output, but in a way that is very user friendly, and I don't have to kill it to do the things I want it to do. And there's not a whole lot of like cautionary things. So, even with my uplink, which I love, there is a lot of caution that I have to give it that, hey, if I give it like too much flat, or if I even accidentally give some anhyzer, it's going to burn over. Like this is like just controlled enough that it won't really let me make big mistakes, but it's still usable if I make a mistake. So nice. That's my feedback. I know that's not like typical feedback I'd give on this disc, but I think it's just very interesting. It was very interesting how it flew for me.
So Jesse has not assigned flight numbers to this disc yet. And what I want you to do, Brad, is I'm going to give you a second, unless you have it already. I'm going to give you a second to think about what you would say for flight numbers if you had to assign flight numbers to this disc.
All right. 3, 4, -2, 1.
Okay.
Cool.
I love it.
That's a very unconventional flight number set, but I think it's a very not unconventional, it's just a very unique disc. So
yeah, I definitely see that. It has an extreme amount of glide, y'all. Like this thing gets up in the air. So the disc, when Jesse and I were talking about comparisons, the two discs that we came to like in discussing it were the Pure and the XT Nova. And for those of you who have ever thrown a Nova before, Paul made them super famous several years ago when he threw with some other company. And they like what people say about a Nova is it just tells you exactly what you're doing. Like if you put too much on it. And this, so when I first went out and threw it, I thought, oh, it's like pure time. And then Jesse and I talked afterwards, and I was like, man, yeah. He's like, no, you need to compare it to a Nova. So I went out yesterday and I threw it compared to a Nova and a pure. And I got to tell y'all, it literally, to me, it lives closer to the Nova, but it's like that perfect middle ground of the Nova. I sent Jesse and Brad a video of me throwing it, and I smashed a Nova, and it went all the way over. And my exact words as it was flying was, well, I'll probably never see that disc again, because it just sailed off into the abyss. So it's currently resting with that Mad Cat that I lost when I tried those episodes. So I just got to stop going to that place when I try disc for this show. But the inner core, I several times threw it poorly, and it still went really far. I was throwing it poorly, like 270. And then I absolutely smashed one, and it came out of my hand, and it's such a good feedback discs, y'all. So like what it's going to do for me is I'm not going to teach lessons with any disc other than the inner core from here on out. I'm going to do field work for me with the inner core, because it just shows you what you're doing right and wrong. And Jesse, I wanted to save this for the internet. It's going in my bag, and it's replacing a disc that I genuinely thought would never leave.
Wait, I got to think about this. Okay, go ahead.
So I would say it's not glidey like a polecat. Like it's not going to replace Jesse's Berg. It's not that. But I need something that I can really jam on, throw really straight, and know that it's not going to burn over, especially if I put some hyzer on it. And the only disc that I have is a Griffin disc in my bag, and that is my precious child.
What?
So I firmly believe that the flight of this disc is exactly what I get out of my precious child.
Wow.
But the beauty is I don't have to beat this thing for years in order to get that flight. I can suddenly start throwing this disc on more risky lines and know that if someone finds it, it can be recycled. It actually has impact. So
wow.
For
worldwide exclusive. Dang.
I'm a little shocked at them all. I don't know what to say about that.
I am too. So I did not expect that.
We're going to run it for a little while and see how inner core does in holding up to it. And it's convenient because it's blue, which just feels like a sign.
There you go. That's why we did it. It was just for you, just to kick out your precious child.
Conspiracy theory.
Yeah.
Here we go.
Well, that's very flattering from both of you. I would like to make it clear, just as I wouldn't tote myself as a player, I also wouldn't tote myself as like a 3D designer and aerodynamics expert, plastics expert, etc. So we were going for something with this disc, and I have to say it came out better than we hoped for, and also I think better than we designed. Ultimately, yeah, it's our design, but it was like I can't take credit for how great it works for me. And for the people that I've given it to, I've never been able to hand someone a disc and just say, throw it flat and straight. And it just goes flat and straight. And I've experienced that with some other discs, but they're usually, like you said, very beat in versions of certain discs and whatnot. And it's interesting because the rim is technically what you'd classify within the 2-speed category, but a lot of people are thinking it's 3 to 4 because of how glidey it is. So a lot of people are seeing the distance and going, well, that's a 4-speed. I mean, people on the video are saying it's a 5-speed. And that's like, I think that shows credit to the glide, because it really just like, it's that finesse disc. It's to resonate with what you said, Brad, like it's become my teacher for finesse. Like I was not smooth before, and I'm slowly getting there, largely credited to just now when I play, I pretty much only play with that disc if I can. And it's stupid sometimes. I mean, I'm stepping up to a 350-foot shot, and I should never be throwing a quote unquote 2-speed And here I am just doing it because I'm loving it. But then when I get to those shorter shots too, I'm like just practicing as much finesse as I can. So it's been really interesting.
Yeah. And I think the part of my game I'm really trying to work on is, I think as you're newer, you're just trying to throw as hard as you can, or like you're always like trying to throw 85% or 90% on a shot. I think what I'm trying to work on is like back off the power. So like this one, if I tried to kill this disc, it was just uncontrollable. It was just not what I wanted it to do. But if I backed it off to like 40, 50% power, I was still throwing, I guess I didn't tell my distance. I was throwing like 230, 240 was how far I was throwing it. So perfectly fine for a putter for me. But yeah, if I gave it too much power, then it was just not going to, it like resisted that extra power that I didn't need on the disc. So
yeah, that's interesting. I've thrown it as hard as I possibly can. And we talked about distance earlier. I've got a decent amount. And if I give it enough air, it has never turned and burned on me, which is pretty crazy for what it is. So, people are guessing maybe there's some understability, maybe there's slight overstability, like maybe there's, where is it in there? And it's interesting for me because I've always mentally, I didn't realize it till this disc, but I've always thought like, if it doesn't turn, it fades. If it doesn't fade, it turns. Like there's no neither option. And this disc is like kind of trying to prove to me that there might be an option that like doesn't do either and really has more to do with how you released it. And if you did it right or if you did it wrong. And if you're trying to throw flat and it's going to the left, you probably gave it some hyzer. And if it's going to the right, maybe there was a little anhyzer. But depends on the elevation and everything there too. So anyway.
Yeah. Well, Jesse, as someone who can proudly say that I've thrown most every iteration of the putter along the way, you nailed it on the final form. And so your dedication to testing it out, believing in something that will not only impact the world in our scores, but impact the world in a better way. I just want to say thank you as a friend and as a disc golfer, and as a human being for what you've done with the inner core, and stoked to see the Trash Panda line just continue to grow.
Yeah, we've talked about it a little bit, but that's the name. Is like we wanted a name that meant a couple things. And what I'll just say for this podcast is we wanted a name that evoked like what's the beginning of what we're doing. And this inner core really was able to evoke that story of like, this is not where we end. This is where we start. And the hope is it's extreme usability, extreme utility, depending on what you're looking for. But then also that you pick it up and you feel like it feels like every other disc, because we're going 100% made out of trash, which sounds like it should be garbage. It's not. I'm biased, but it's not. And I can unequivocally say that because I've been playing for long enough and throwing discs long enough that I wasn't going to sell something that wasn't matching quality or if not better. But we hope it feels like every other disc in the sense that like, we're not trying to make the best discs on Earth. We're trying to make the best discs for the Earth. So this is that disc for us. And might it feel like any other non-beaded putter you've ever felt in your life? Might it throw and fly like other putters you could get on the market? Sure. Totally. But it's different in one extremely unique way, which is it's made from 100% recycled plastic. And that's never before been seen in disc golf. So it's quite exciting to kind of be among a group of people now who are pioneering that, being our team and everything like that. So yeah, super stoked.
Well, Jesse, we want to thank you for coming on the podcast. You're one of the busiest people I know. So it's an open invitation. Anytime you want to come back on, when future discs come out, you are welcome to join us. But in the meantime, where can people find you?
Just Google Trash Panda Disc Golf. You should find us. So look us up on YouTube. We're launching a disc on November 7th. So if you go to our website, it's just cryptic right now. So there's just nothing going on. So maybe don't go there and go to our YouTube for now. But yeah, if you just I think you can just look up Trash Panda on YouTube and it should be one of the first things that comes up. So yeah.
And if people enjoy your soothing voice, you run a podcast as well. Where can they find that?
Yeah, patent pending with Jomez Pro. They can find it at jomezpro.com or wherever you listen to podcasts. Look up patent pending, the future of disc golf.
Love it, man.
Thanks again, Jesse. We really appreciate you coming on. Thanks for sending us the disc, and most
Absolutely.
importantly, thanks for letting us be a small part of this awesome thing that you're doing.
Back at you. Thanks for having me. It's been a blast.
Dude, much appreciated, Jesse. We'll talk to you soon. Brad, the longer we find ourselves in the disc golf scene, I just feel like relationships are so critical to have, like friendships and whatnot, across the entire span of disc golf. And I'm grateful for Jesse. He's a friend to us both personally. He's a friend to Atlas. He's a friend to Robbie C Disc Golf. He's a friend to this podcast. He's a great guy, and it was awesome having him on.
Yeah. And I don't know if I'm sure you recall this, Robbie, but the only reason we met was because of Jesse.
It's true. It's true. Yeah, because y'all had met, and then he was like, yo, you got to go check out this Robbie guy. And I'm sure you were like, nah, he seems like a dork.
Yeah. Well, I was a fan. I watched your channel because I was a beginner, and I started watching your videos and like learning from them. It's where I started like learning how to put a bag together, like different molds and all that. That's from your videos. And then, yeah, I actually reached out via Atlas to Jesse to just talk through some things. Because again, I was a fan of his channel. And then we talked a little bit. I sent him a Pioneer bag, and he called and gave me the feedback. He's like, hey, you really got to talk to Robbie. And I was like, oh, awesome. I watch his videos. So, and here we are, 26 episodes later, friends, doing a podcast together. It's cool.
Yeah. There's a Jimmy Fallon skit, or not skit. There's a video with Lonely Island music group, Andy Samberg and them. And they go on Jimmy Fallon's show, and they were like, hey, Jimmy, just so you know, when we did our like media tour, we made sure to mention you in every single podcast or like interview we did.
Yeah.
And then they roll these clips, and it is hilarious. So I have a long-standing promise to Jesse that when we both launched podcasts, we were like, okay, it's not going to stand there, but every other piece of content that we go on together, or like without each other, it is a rule that we have to mention. Like I got to mention him.
That's funny.
So we have a great time with it.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So speaking of great times, you got some new stuff coming to the warehouse this week.
Yeah. So the biggest thing coming right after this podcast, if you're hearing this right now, pause, go to foundationdisc.com. Our UV CT buzzes are dropping this Friday at 5 p.m. So the 28th at 5 p.m. These things are sick. I mean, I don't know if you can hear this. Let's see. This is being compared to KC Pro Rock. So just throwing that out there. Definitely a little bit more overstable out of the box than your typical buzz. And again, it's in the UV plastic. It changes purple out in the sun very, very quickly, by the way. Actually pretty impressed by it. So that's launching, has a custom foundation stamp on it. I love the stamp. So yeah, get those Friday at 5. We also have full Clash disc restock, including the Peach, which is also releasing today.
So good.
Yeah, Peach is a very good disc. But yeah, I'm liking the soda, trying the soda out a little bit. I know it's kind of like a little overlap in my bag, but just trying to figure out what I like the most. So yeah, full Clash disc restock. We restock Mindbenders, Razor Claw 3s, Cloudbreaker 3s, and the new Glow Sensei. Those are all restocked on the site right now. So Discmania restock, Clash disc restock, and the launch of the CT UV Foundation Stamp Buzz. That's a lot of acronyms. That's a big acronym if you want to spell it out there. So yeah, that's really what's new. We got some other stuff coming in. That's kind of our focus for right now. Again, recently restock page is your best friend on foundationdisc.com. It'll just show you as we're restock. Oh, Brody, when he was in, signed a bunch of Raptoriuses and Janus Thrashers. Those are up now too. So make sure you check those out.
Dude, it is a good time to be over at foundationdisc.com. So please go check it out. If it was not for foundationdisc.com, we wouldn't be here having a podcast, getting to hang out with friends. So we appreciate each and every one of you listening and are so grateful for your continued support. And it's just crazy that we have a quarter of 100 podcasts already out. Like that's
That's
crazy to me.
That's a lot.
We're just trying to embrace the motto, y'all. We're continuing to see it, try out some discs, and know that if it's good,
keep in the bag. We'll see y'all next week. Thanks again.